I say there should be some in your drawer, I think.
Behind you.
Did you sign these already or no?
No, I did not. I put them out there because they were behind. They were in my way.
Or they're not in the camera frame.
No problemo.
So it gets boring.
Oh, I need to ask her.
Okay.
Well, I think I just said that in other words. I'll be here together.
It is on.
Oh, look at you.
6% charge.
No, but they are getting there.
Do you need some juice or are you good?
No, they're all good.
Okay.
I think 46.
Okay, so, all right.
You're logged in, right?
There's 9, but I don't know. I want to find out.
Well, what agenda?
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll just do it then.
So we will call our December 10th regular meeting of our governing board 2019 to order at 7:03. Roll call. It will show that all members are here. Mrs. O'Brien. Hold on
Call
one
to
second.
order. Roll call. Pledge. Pledge
Okay,
and moment
so
of
we are
silence.
now going to stand, excuse me, for the pledge, and after the pledge is done, we are going to stand for a moment of silence, and the moment of silence is for the members of our district that have either suffered a tragedy or maybe a great joy. So with that, we will. One nation. So on this last board meeting of the decade, Ms. Tweedy, would you like to give your board report? And maybe we should adopt the agenda first. We'll do that.
Excuse
I
me,
think.
President Ordway.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
know. I'm ahead of myself again.
I move to adopt the agenda with the modification of moving item 7C, new principal, to just after 3C.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Don't have a. You can vote for us, or you can record our vote, which was 5 ayes. So now perhaps, yes, you can go and be the first last report of the decade.
Okay.
the first last report. That sounds a little ominous. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ordway.
Bit of the decade. I didn't say
Of the
you
decade.
know,
Okay.
I prefaced it.
So, first of all, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy holidays, which are coming up probably not soon enough for some of our teachers, but we're almost there, almost through the end of the semester. I would also like to thank all of the community members who have emailed me regarding some of the issues that we have coming up, the Bel Air Traditional Academy, as well as the boundary changes. And I do want to let those folks know that due to my work schedule and my commuting time, I don't always have time to respond personally to each email. I do read each email and I do take it into consideration. I don't always have time to email everybody back personally. And so I do want to respond to some of the things that I've seen in the many emails that I've been receiving. And I'd also like to clear up some things that I think are perhaps some misconceptions that people may have. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who has lived in the Deer Valley High School attendance boundaries since the year 2000, so 19 years. I first moved into the district into the West Glen neighborhood, and then in 2006 moved into the Highland Lakes area. So I've been in two different communities within those attendance boundaries. And one of the common themes that I've heard saw in the emails is concerns about property values. I'm not a realtor. I'm not running comps on people's properties. I would like to share my personal experience with property values living within those attendance boundaries. And my experience has been the home that we purchased in West Glen, the property values doubled in about 7 years. And then when I moved into the Highland Lakes area, I looked at homes in both Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1 as well as Highlands at Arrowhead Ranch. And I found that the property values actually in Highland Lakes, which is in Deer Valley High School's attendance boundaries, were actually slightly higher at that time. And then everybody's property values went down with the economic crash, so I don't think we can blame that on Deer Valley High School. I think we can blame that on dishonest mortgage brokers. But over time, what I've seen is that both the home that I sold in West Glen and the home I'm currently in, those property values have come up. So that's just my personal experience with property values within those attendance boundaries, and I wanted to share that with parents who may have concerns about that. I do understand your concerns. For most of us, our homes are our most important asset. We put money in to our mortgage every month, interest, we pay taxes on it, we repair it, we keep it up. So I do understand your concern. For most of us, that's our most important investment and our asset. And it is for me as well. So I did want to share that. A second common theme that I've heard is concerns that community members have that my older children went to Mountain Ridge. I want their younger siblings to go there too. And I would certainly agree with that. I think there needs to be that continuity if the board votes to change boundaries. And I do want to say right off the bat, for those of you who have inquired, how do I plan to vote? I haven't decided. I'm still looking at the information. I'm listening to what community members have to say. I'm reading those emails. I honestly haven't decided what my vote will be. So don't infer from my comments that I've made a decision, because I have not. So I do understand that desire. If you've had family members go through one high school, that you want those younger siblings, whether they're in 4th grade now or 5th grade or 8th grade and promoting, you want them to have the same experience. You're comfortable with the teachers, you know the administrators, you want them to have the same experience that their older siblings had, and I would certainly agree that that should happen. The next issue I want to address that was a common theme was concerns about the quality of the education that Deer Valley High School provides. And one community member even referred to it as subpar. So I want to address that again with my personal experience as a parent in the district. I have 3 sons. They all attended Deer Valley High School. None of them received a subpar education. And I'm an educator, so I'm picky. I taught in the district for 10 years. I know what good teaching looks like, and I have high standards for that. The outcomes for all of my sons were extremely good. I have one son who earned a full ride scholarship to ASU, studied at their Polytechnic Engineering School, and is working as an engineer. My second son has been serving his country for 4 years in the Arizona National Guard. He had a good experience in the highly rated Air Force Junior ROTC program at Deer Valley High. And then my youngest son is a real success story because of guidance counselors and because of teachers who cared about him. They took a kid who had no idea what he wanted to do, helped him find a career path, and he's working for a major hospital in surgical sterilization and working towards his surgical technology certificate. So that was the outcome my students had. I have great respect for the teachers there. One of the things that I liked about Deer Valley High School was that they had many veteran teachers, very stable staff, as well as students, former students who came back to teach at Deer Valley High School because of their connection to the staff and to the school. And I apologize if my report's going a little bit long. Many times I don't give a report, so I'm kind of using up all that time I banked up.
Hey, it's the last one of the decade.
Right.
Keep going.
So if you've heard from someone it's not a good school, all I can tell you is that was not my experience as a parent. That was not my students' experience. I have great respect for Principal Crooks, and I know if any of you had concerns, go to the school. Make an appointment to speak with her. Take a tour. Look at what's going on in their classrooms. They have some really great things going on there. The last piece that I've received a lot of comments on that I want to address is the comments regarding demographics. I even had someone email me, and again, I'm not using people's names, that said, why not look at rezoning to a demographic comparable to what Deer Valley High School is now? So again, having lived within those attendance boundaries for 19 years, I can tell you that Arrowhead Elementary, which feeds into Mountain Ridge, is a Title I school. Highland Lakes, which feeds into Deer Valley High School, is not a Title I school. It would be a mistake to assume that all of the neighborhoods surrounding or within the Deer Valley attendance boundaries are Title I or are lower socioeconomic, or my kids are going to be going to school with other students who aren't at the same socioeconomic level that we are. If you look at Highland Lakes, it's just across 67th Avenue from Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1. Our property values are very similar. The demographics are very similar. If you go through that neighborhood, it won't look any different than Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1. If you go to West Glen, same thing. If you go to Miramonte, there's another neighborhood that I believe feeds into Deer Valley High School that's just west of Midwestern University. Same thing. Are there older neighborhoods where the property values are lower? Yes, there are. But it's a mix, and it's a good mix of kids. My students did not suffer because they went to school with some students whose parents didn't have the same educational background that I had. Nobody joined a gang, nobody took drugs, nobody dropped out. The worst thing that happened socially was my youngest son brought home a girlfriend I did not like. And I can guarantee you that that's a universal experience that will happen to every mother of a son at every high school at some point. So I would just... Again, I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this issue, but I would ask all of our community members and constituents, before you believe what you've heard, consider maybe what you heard isn't entirely accurate. If you're concerned about it, meet the principal. Look at the staff. See what the good things that are going on in that high school before you jump to a conclusion that maybe not is entirely true. I don't consider my neighborhood to be the hood. I don't consider myself to be riffraff or undesirable. Well, Miss Tweedy may beg to differ. I'm obviously well educated, have a good income, have a nice home. I have the same obnoxious HOA that my neighbors on the other side of 67th Avenue have. And let me tell you what, our HOA president is a retired police officer, and the vice president is a code enforcement officer for the city of Phoenix. I can assure you, our neighborhood is spick and span. So, and also, if you do have additionally have concerns, or if you have data that I should consider, please continue to email me. But I don't want to receive emails containing derogatory comments. I don't want to receive emails with veiled threats. And if you're here to speak tonight about Deer Valley High School and about the communities, please bear in mind that's my children's alma mater. that's the community that I live in, and I'm proud to live in. I'm proud to have my sons as Skyhawks. So, okay, so I think I've probably taken up my time plus everybody else's, but remember, I banked it up. So, and with that, again, wish everybody happy holidays, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, if you have data you feel I should consider. I understand this is an emotional and a difficult topic. Thank you.
Well, alrighty then. Ms. Tweedy, do you have a report this evening?
I'm going to just be brief. I think you
Have to
covered
be.
it. No, I agree with most of what, well, all of what Ms. Frank said, and I would also add to that. I am personal friends with many of the teachers and staff at Deer Valley High School, and I can tell you that the comments that are being made in the community is very hurtful to educators who have devoted their entire careers to helping kids for 20, 30 plus years. I will also say I have friends who sent their children to Deer Valley High School, had great experiences. They went over there for the nursing program, and they're on their way to becoming nurse professionals. I actually spoke to an employee, and I'm not going to say names because she didn't ask me to disclose this, but it was a Deer Valley employee who lives in Mountain Ridge's attendance boundaries, and she was telling me she's open enrolling her daughter at Deer Valley because of the nursing program last night when we were talking about it. So I do know that people that work at this district office would send their children to Deer Valley High School. So it really is I mean, I do understand the parents who are sending emails and have questions about Bel Air and their child's in 6th grade and in Sage, and is Sage going to continue? I absolutely agree with that, and asking those questions, and the people concerned about siblings, and if they've already enrolled as a 8th grader and picked high school courses. But I do not understand bashing an entire school community. I can't get behind that. I'm offended by the emails I receive that are saying, if you send me to the decay in the South. I mean, really. That's offensive. So if you have comments, I would be welcome. I know changing boundaries is certainly an emotional issue for many, and wanting to keep their children together, I understand. And concerns about if you've picked classes, I understand. But bashing an entire school of educators and threatening me with re-election, that just falls on deaf ears. I mean, that is just not even input that I will consider. But I will certainly consider anything that has to do with you family concerns or specific to keeping your family together. So I would invite you to share that. And of course, you can send me any emails you want, but those are the ones I'm really reading and considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
I'll break it up first before I talk about some of the emails I've received. We had a lot of really big celebrations over the last weekend for some of our students. The Sonoran Foothills Robobcats robotics team won their tournament and are headed to state, which is amazing. So congratulations to them. And then we had several high school Spirit Line Palm groups, cheer squads that made nationals over the weekend. So that was really amazing to see. I think there were three different schools that qualified for that. So congratulations. And then my daughter has the opportunity to be a part of Annie at Starlight Community Theater. And I think if I counted correctly, there were 9 DVUSD students and 1 DVUSD teacher. The choir teacher at Deer Valley High School is also in it. So it was great to see Deer Valley so represented in that cast, and just how talented our kids are in the community that are pursuing some outside curriculars. We are also in the throes, the district office, different schools around the district have adopted other schools, their sister schools. There is so much outpouring community support right now to take care of kids and families that are in need this holiday season. So I just want to say thank you so much for loving your community and loving these kids. I've spent the last 2 days at Natalie and Company sorting and checking in gifts. I think from the community, and these are just people that live within Deer Valley School District boundaries, not necessarily associated with any schools. I think a lot of the parents or people that adopted students don't even have children at home any longer, but just gave hundreds and hundreds of dollars in gifts for some of our students. And going through that, it just brought tears to my eyes to see the generosity. So thank you so much to the community members, to our staff members and our social workers and school nurses who are spending countless hours right now figuring out ways and opportunities and seeking out sponsorships for those students. So thank you so much. And then, I'm not going to talk too much about the Boundary Initiative other than, I have 4 kids in the district. I know that this is a very emotional time. My kids' schools are affected also, but it really hurts my heart to hear that our employees are being verbally abused on the phone by people who are unhappy. That they just are the ones that happen to answer the phone, and that's unfair. It's not fair to them because they're not the ones that are making the decision. I've received, and I believe that some of my fellow board members have received, some borderline threatening emails, and that's not okay either. I give a lot to the community, and I have for the last several years, not just as a board member, but just as a member of the community. And I have really big shoulders, and I can carry a lot, but I don't like opening up my email and being threatened. And so I know that this is an important topic, and frankly, we're here with this boundary issue because previous boards haven't crossed the finish line with correcting some of the past issues. And so we came together as a board and said, we'll take it on and we'll figure it out and we'll try to make the best decision for the entire district. And it's going to be hard, and we all know that it's going to be hard and that it's going to be difficult. But I'm hoping that as a community and as a group of parents that we can come to a common solution and come to an agreement of just to be kind. I'm sure that you wouldn't like it if one of us sent you an email that was borderline threatening either, or responded with harsh words back. And so I'm just asking. I've read every single email I've gotten. I've responded to some that have asked me, to every single one that has asked me questions, to some that have just said, I don't want the boundaries. I've replied back and asked questions and haven't received a response back, to find out, well, what don't you like about the boundaries? Give me some more information, or tell me where you live so I can better understand, where you are. And I've had some great dialogue with some of the parents that I've been able to have a respectful conversation with, and that's all I'm asking. I will listen. I will answer my phone. We can have conversations through email or through the phone, but I'm just asking for some civility in those conversations. I think that all of us are open, and we're all elected officials coming together as one governing body, and we want to do what's best for all of the students in the district. So one of the things that I heard was that some parents felt like the district was pulling a fast one with having this during the holiday season because we thought that people wouldn't be paying attention, and that's not true. That is the farthest thing from the truth. It just happened to be with timing, with trying to get the new school built and trying to get that open, and we have to get those boundaries done because we're on a timeline, and there's so many things that have to fall into place, and the first part of that is us determining boundaries. And so we didn't want to have several boundary discussions. We wanted to just get it done and all out of the way at one time. And that was what we decided back in January of this year, was let's look at everything. Let's not just look at one thing. Let's look, and if we're going to fix it, let's fix the entire district, any of the boundaries that need adjustment. So With that being said, we have a lot of celebrations over the next week and a half of school, holiday concerts and choir concerts and school celebrations and gingerbread building parties and snow parties and all of these wonderful things that our educators and our communities come together to support the school. So I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday season and that you have a fantastic winter break and that you enjoy the last couple of days of this decade, and that when we come back in 2020 that we'll be ready to start the new decade off with the bang.
Well, thank you for your last report of the decade. Mrs. O'Brien.
Thank you, President Ordway. No, I was not going to call you that. So I would like to say that I was able to attend one of our beginner bands over at Stetson Hills, the fifth graders. And for those of you who have students in music, you know that at fifth grade, they start small and they build up. And so it was exciting to see this new group, very large group of fifth graders at their first band concert. They did an excellent job over there. I also I attended the Mountain Ridge High School boundary meeting last night. And first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Miglerino for his presentation and also give him kudos for handling what became a somewhat unruly crowd who, instead of for a few moments, it became an unproductive meeting in that they wanted to yell at him and not allow him to answer questions. So thank you, Mr. Miglerino, for keeping your cool and getting that meeting back on track so that parents who did want to get information were able to do that. This is a very hot topic, and I would say that Mrs. Reed touched on it, but the reason we're here today is because several governing boards before us have not tackled that issue. And so every time a board chooses not to tackle that issue and pushes it down the road, it gets messier and more complicated and more difficult, and more families and students and communities are impacted. And so my hat's off to this group of board members who is willing to sit down and look at what is best for Deer Valley School District as a whole, so that we can continue to grow and accommodate the students we have, the students that will be moving into our neighborhoods because we do have areas where we can build homes, and the students who choose to come to us from outside of our school district because we are one of the best school districts in the state and because we have a lot of excellent schools. All of our schools are excellent, and for different reasons. So for that, I would also ask that we work together in a civil way and a respectful way to accomplish that. So thank you, ladies, for all touching on that. I'll save the rest of my remarks for when we hear about boundaries at the end of the evening. But finally, I do want to not let it go without being said that Mrs. Reed will not toot her own horn, but this is the third year that she has reached out to schools and asked for them to provide us with kids and families who need help. So in addition to our cabinet members and our administrators, Mrs. Reed has done a lot of work in getting folks to contribute and take care of our kids who might not otherwise have a holiday. So thank you for all that you do for our community and our kids and families who are in need. She does a lot of time and effort into that. And I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. I look forward to finishing up tonight strongly and coming back in January to keep on working.
Looking forward to your first meeting of the next decade.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we've all pretty much covered the boundary thought process. I've been on the governing board for a little bit, and I have received some, I would say, nasty emails, but I think what happens is emotion takes over, and then you get through that, and then you start thinking, what are these boundaries really going to do for my kid? So for the students that will have an opportunity to try something new, and for the parents that will be able to see campuses that they have never seen but they've heard about only from somebody who's never been there, who doesn't know what they might be talking about. Barry Goldwater is one of those campuses. Deer Valley, I believe, might have the most college graduates prior to them graduating from high school with their AAs, but I'm not sure. But I know they might be up there on that. So all 5 of our high schools have excellent things to offer our students. And however the boundaries fall, you have the right and the opportunity to go to whichever high school that you choose to go to, because we're open enrollment. So at this moment in time, we probably have a couple of thousand kids that are going somewhere that they might not be slated for because they have a different path that they want to follow than the high school in their area. So yes, it would be great if people could be civil. It would be great for all that, but let the emails keep coming, and what we do is we take that information, synthesize it ourselves, we forward it, and we try to address it. There's already been a few changes made from the very first presentations. And as for the high schools, that's not going to start till the following year, so we don't have to worry about the 8th graders this year that have already made their choices for classes. So we also are a community that cares a lot. We have populations that might need help with food. We might have some that need help with whatever. We don't just take care of our students, we also take care of our staff that needs help. We have a population in our district that are maybe unflattering. It's called couch surfers, where they don't know where they might be sleeping from week to week. So we have one of our departments, maybe the whole district office, but whatever, we've got help. So we're not even looking for the things they want, but we're providing things they need. We have students that do not look forward to 2 weeks off because they don't know where their next meal comes from. So we're also making sure that we can touch and have food for 2 weeks that is easily microwavable, because they may be the people, or the students may be the ones that are providing meals. We have people collecting blankets. We have all of this, and this is our community. So when we're doing boundaries, remember, these 5 people and all of those people are the same people trying to decide boundaries that try to make sure that we take care of each other. So that would be, have a very happy, safe, and relaxing holiday. And if you're having something has happened that is upsetting your holiday, please remember to reach out. There's help everywhere for everyone, and we are here for each other. So that would be my last board report of the decade, and I've given one every decade, or every year in this decade.
Year in this decade.
So go ahead, Dr. Finch, with your pine tie.
Nice. All right, thanks. I'll I have a grocery list of stuff. I'm just going to hit one, and that's an announcement to the community and to the schools. I think I shared it with the board. About a year and a half ago, we were in the 18 superintendents were in the governor's office talking about really the budget, what it was going to be for next year. And a lot of the schools were talking about school resource officers or safety or fences, et cetera, when we were talking about school safety. And I made a concerted effort to make sure that we included in the budget, gave the recommendation to add more counselors and social workers. Long story short, the governor put that in his package. It ended up finally getting through the legislature, $20 million. And so this last year, the ball was passed to, I believe, the Department of Ed to get that handed out. We filled out applications, about 27, 25 applications, somewhere around there. And after we filled them out, they changed the rules on us, which is thanks. But the good news is we ended up receiving 10 grants around social workers, SROs, and counselors. So we're really excited about that. And so it'll impact 12 of our campuses, some more support for students. So pretty excited about that. Kind of an early Christmas present. That's my
Congratulations.
report. Yep, thanks.
The finance report is next for Heather. We have the finance report from Mrs. Mock, please.
It is Mrs. Mock. Okay.
Good evening, President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and honored guests. I am pleased to report again the enrollment report for the end of November for the current school year. We continue to show a 0.5% increase in enrollment from this time last year. And for the end of November, that equates to about 153 students overall. We are up about, at the end of November, about 110 kindergarten students. Although our net increase in pre-K through 8 students is about 52, with an increase of 101 students in high school for that total of 153. Not to spoil January's enrollment report, but when we start talking about the December numbers, but we just reviewed those in a meeting prior to this. So I think it notable to say that we're actually up in December already 171 kids over this time last year, still at 0.5%, but about 69 students in pre-K through 8 overall and 102 in high school. Any questions about enrollment at this time? With that, I will follow up with the November M&O budget report. We are projecting at this time a carry forward of $488,000, almost $489,000. Most of what we are seeing that in is classified salary savings. It is good news that we are slightly increasing the M&O projected carry forward overall. However, we do believe that the bulk of that in the classified salaries comes from a couple groups of staff members that we are having difficulty filling those positions, including custodial staff and paraprofessionals. But I will answer any questions about the M&O budget report at this time.
I see no questions for you.
Thank you very much.
Allegan, what's up?
No, I'm going to move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation for the principal of elementary number 31, Tricia Graham.
I second.
Why, is there any discussion?
I think Ms. Moffett might want to tell us something.
Would you like us to approve her first, and then you can...
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, President Ordway, governing board members, and Dr. Finch. We're very pleased to introduce Tricia Graham. Go ahead and stand, Tricia.
See, I was just going to make you wave, but she's
Yeah.
making you stand.
Tricia Graham has worked in the Deer Valley Unified School District for many years. She served as the principal of New River, then the principal of Canyon Springs, where she's located now, and she'll be moving over to the brand new campus this upcoming year. So congratulations, Trish.
Congratulations. Thank you.
You may now leave the building. And the family may go with you.
Goodbye, Jeremy.
Good night.
Good night, Jerry.
Okay. So we have public comments next. There are 2 public comments on the traditional school, which we'll take at this time. There are 7, well, I know one of them, but there are 6 other folks who want to comment on boundaries. What I'd like to know is, do you want to make those comments now during public comments, or do you want to make them at the agenda item in the preview? So if anybody wants to make them now, raise your hand. Can you tell us, Sarah? Okay. Anybody else want to go now? What is your name, sir? David? Yes? Okay. And Nate Miller, are you going now or later? Okay. You ready? Just ready to go. Okay, then we'll take everybody but Jennifer, and Jennifer wants to go at the item, correct? Okay. So the first 2 folks, if you can come up, Jackie McCormick and Virginia Mullins. The board invites public comment on the district's business in general and on any agenda item in specific. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. To accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may short speakers' times. Vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting employees by name will not be allowed. The governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or request a future agenda item. If you could just please state your name clearly for the record, and then your time will begin with the clock and end
My
with the
name
clock.
is Jackie McCormick. President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and guests. My name is Jackie McCormick, and I am the proud mother of 2 children that attend Sandra Day O'Connor. I am also a 28-year teacher in the Deer Valley School District. I happen to be a 5th grade teacher at Bel Air. What is the greatest gift that we can give absolutely anyone? It's time. So I truly believe giving the students, parents, and staff the gift of time would be in the best interest of the district regarding the proposal and opening of the Bel Air Traditional Academy for the 2021 school year. Why not consider moving all the staff and students from Bel Air to either Mirage or Greenbrier for the 2021 school year? Then using the 2021 school year to make sure we have everything in order to make the Bel Air Traditional Academy a smooth transition and successful from the start. Time allows the building to be completely empty. It gives the construction company the time and space needed to transform the buildings with no issues or any interruptions to student learning. Time allows an entire year to start marketing the traditional school the way it really needs to be promoted. Remember, this is about providing parents a school of choice. Deer Valley wants to retain, bring back, and attract more students, not just those in the existing Bel Air community. This allows the district ample time to research, adopt, and secure necessary curriculum in order for parents and staff to make informed decisions. Time gives the companies of the curriculum's adoptions the ability to plan trainings for not only the staff, but the parents as well. Time allows parents to make informed decisions that are not rushed. Time allows the staff to make decisions on whether they can honestly teach in a traditional setting with the adopted curriculum. Time allows the district the opportunity to staff the traditional school on more realistic enrollment numbers, not just those collected in the next 36 days. Time allows the district to build what they believe is the dream traditional school, #extraordinary. Currently, the public is viewing the proposal as being rushed. This is based on the reactions of meetings that I have attended. Parents are being asked to enroll their children into a school in which priority open enrollment started today. We are asking parents blindly to make decisions without knowledge. Parents do not know who the principal will be. Parents do not know what the curriculum will look like before making these decisions. Parents want to know if the teachers will be able to say too. Would you buy something without information and knowledge, or just some sort of reassurance? Well, time will give our parents just that. The timelines presented at the December 9th parent meeting do not seem realistic. It was shared that the principal would be interviewed and secured by January 14th board meeting. Right now, the district is planning on an open house for the Traditional Academy for January 30th. This would be just 2 weeks after the principal announcement. Is it feasible for this new principal to post, interview, and secure staff by January 30th in order for parents to meet them? So I ask you, please give us the time. Thank you.
Virginia Mullins.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and guests. I am here tonight to talk about the staffing at the academy that at the traditional academy that Bel Air Elementary will be repurposed to for the 2020-21 school year. My name is Virginia Mullins. This is my 20th year of teaching in the Deer Valley District. I have taught at Bel Air Elementary for all 20 years. I was a 2008-2009 DVUSD Teacher of the Year. I myself am a product of the Deer Valley District. I currently have a daughter at Deer Valley High School, a son at Desert Sky Middle, and 2 sons at Bel Air. I am excited to see the traditional school model being implemented both as an educator and a parent. That is the model I encountered throughout my own schooling, as well as the instructional methods my college professors taught me. I think having a rigorous curriculum, acceleration of learning, strict behavior code, and back to basics teaching will be extremely beneficial for the Bel Air community. However, I'm not excited to hear that I have to reapply for my job at Bel Air. I have to literally fight for my job that I have had for 20 years. We are not even given consideration over others, since anyone in the district can apply for the positions at Bel Air at the same exact time. I know there are many reasons as to why we have to go through this. We will be implementing a new curriculum and a whole new way of teaching, so there will be a lot of training and collaborating that not everyone is up for. Well, then why not simply ask the Bel Air staff what they want? You'd be surprised as to who wants to stay and take on this task with fidelity, and who knows this method of teaching is not for them. I want my son, who will be entering 6th grade, to not have to change schools and leave his group of friends he's been with since kindergarten. I want my other son, who will be starting kindergarten, to have the pleasure and privilege of attending the same school his mother works at, just like his 3 older siblings did. I ask you all to consider what you have heard, because you are more than able to make decisions that will benefit all Bel Air stakeholders, whether it be teachers, students, or the community. Thank you.
Thank you. If Sarah Olney, Sandra Gutierrez, and David Gingrich could please come to the microphone in that order.
My name is Sarah Olney. So, DVUSD has asked for input, and we offered 2 suggestions. We said, why can't DVUSD simply extend the northern boundary of Mountain Ridge and leave the southern boundary unaffected? If you could turn to Exhibit B in the handout, according to Table 19 of your 2017 report, it shows that as of 2016 and 2017, Mountain Ridge had a student body of 2,310, of which 357 came in through open enrollment. If you turn to Exhibit D, it shows that 185 were students from out of the district. Indeed, last night I learned from your deputy superintendent that Mountain Ridge has about 200 from out of the district. I called Liberty High School and asked them about how many students do you accept by open enrollment, because apparently that's the issue. And she said roughly there's about 400 students, although it's diminishing because they give priority to their residents. And I said, about how many come from out of the district? And she said about 70%, so about 280 students. That's well below 357. So what I don't understand is DVUSD is saying that that is not an option, but why? Why can't DVUSD accept West Wing, given that your projected report says that by the end of the predicted period, Mountain Ridge will have the lowest enrollment status, and fill the remaining spots with the priority open enrollment based on a priority standard, giving priority to your in-residents and then out-of-district residents. The other item is the growth in the East Wing. I have asked why boundaries shared by Deer Valley and Barry Goldwater can't be redrawn to increase Deer Valley High School territory. I believe your deputy superintendent said it was because the growth was on the west side. However, I thought I heard him also say that it's because the residents in that area, in that boundary area, is aging and they don't have student population to increase enrollment. So I ask you to turn to Exhibit A. That mark that I have highlighted in green are the students that reside right next to Deer Valley High School. And from Barry Goldwater, they can easily transition over, and so I just don't understand. The community is similar. So during the November meeting, we faulted the first proposal, saying the enrollment numbers appear to adjust itself even without intervention, and the only school that was experiencing growth would be Barry Goldwater. The proposal offered by this December petition, however, draws this magnanimous, like all these different boundary guidelines, but Barry Goldwater is unaffected because it's just an illusion. The Boulder Creek incorporates areas that is not populated at all, that's hardly populated. Why? Is it to create the need for another high school when the numbers don't justify it? At the end of the projected period, the enrollment capacity will be about 12,300, and including the out-of-district members, you'll have a student staff about 12,000. How do you justify talking about another school down the line?
Thank you for your comments. Sandra Gutierrez.
Dr. Finch, if you could provide a response to some of the questions that Mrs. Gutierrez asked, I would appreciate seeing that. And I don't know if,
That was
if
Mr.
we need
Olney,
her to,
or Sarah Olney, sorry.
yeah, I don't know if we need her to email those questions to you.
That would be the most helpful. Yep. then we are more likely to answer them
Would
correctly.
you please?
Tiers, if the questions that you asked of the board in your report, if you could email those to Dr. Finch and he can provide a response to
Oh,
us
along with your handout, please.
with the handout, that would be most helpful.
If you could send your questions and the handout electronically to Dr. Finch, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandra Gutierrez. Not only does this boundary change initiative actually go against many of the principles set by DVUSD, such as long-term data-driven plan for future growth, keeping families together, accounting for distance, proximity, and transportation cost, it also goes against the culture of Mountain Ridge High School. If you've ever attended a meeting or event at Mountain Ridge, they always love to open by sharing that 70+% of their faculty has been at Ridge since the day it opened. Ridge prides itself on a strong culture of community and tradition. And do you know who else has been at Ridge since the day it opened in 1995? The Arrowhead community. For the past 25 years, our community was at Mountain Ridge, supporting it and paying for it and building our families' lives around it, and making it the #1 school in the district and the city and the West Valley. Long before these other communities you'd like to invite in to replace us were even a dream in a developer's head. And our neighborhood is now the source of Ridge's first, second generation students. We are the original Mountain Ridge family. Mountain Ridge is our home and our children's home and our community's home, and we want to stay. But if you kick us out of our home, our community will not take our children to Deer Valley High School. We will continue to enroll our children at Mountain Ridge, or we will take our children out of the district to Sunrise Mountain or Liberty or Glendale Prep, which are all better and closer schools than Deer Valley. This community created with our time and our money and our effort and with our children, the best high school you've got, Mountain Ridge High School. And we will not go from the #1 school to the next to last school and sacrifice our children's education for what we were told last night is basically the sole purpose of increasing attendance at Deer Valley. You are sacrificing children's education, taking away the best education the district has to offer, and exchanging it for the worst, not to reduce overcrowding, but rather to attempt to forcibly increase attendance at a B-rated school. According to your projections, with no boundary change implemented, Ridge will not be over capacity in the future. And if Ridge ever does go over capacity, stop accepting hundreds and hundreds of students from other schools and other districts before you kick out your own people. This change is completely unnecessary and detrimental to our children. But if the boundary change is implemented, you will not increase attendance at Deer Valley. You will decrease attendance in the district and lose many of your most supportive and longtime families and best students, because we will not take our children to Deer Valley High School. And I'm sorry that it hurts your feelings or offends you for us to point out the indisputable fact that Deer Valley is a much lower ranked school than Mountain Ridge. But the numbers don't lie, and we won't be guilted into silently standing by and accepting this change.
Thank you. David Gingrich.
David Gingrich. I'm a resident of Arrowhead Ranch, Phase 1. Thank the board. It's an honor. First found out about this process, it was on Nextdoor.
Sir, we need you to speak into the microphone and address.
Hear me?
Well,
Okay.
it's not just about us hearing you, it's about
When
the.
I first found out about the process, through Nextdoor. And it kind of shocked me because it was right around Thanksgiving. I hadn't heard anything about this. And I just want to give you a little history about Phase 1, Phase 2. I moved here in '87 from Colorado. At the intersection of 67th and Avenue is Phase 1, the first square mile of Arrowhead Ranch. He built that ranch out with the understanding that everybody would be going to Mountain Ridge. I went up there, it was nothing but a piece of dirt. Subsequently, I had 3 children that all went there and graduated from Mountain Ridge. This is more about tradition. It's not, to me, it's not about test scores. It's not about Deer Valley High School. It's not about any of that stuff, open enrollment. It's more about tradition, pride, culture, community by your own standards. You write it as like point number 2, community. We don't want to bust up communities. So I thought I'd get involved with this whole process, see what's going on. So I went out and canvassed my neighbors. 80%, 90% don't even know what's going on here. And there's probably 3/4 of people that have children that are going to be impacted in the future. They don't even know. My neighbor lady across the street from LA, totally upset about it. They're not here tonight, just like 95% of the people. But long story short, out of 60 names that I talked to, I got called a Democrat, a liberal, all this stuff. And let me tell you something. You know why public education's getting tarnished in this state and across the nation? It's because of stuff that's going on right now. You've got to think this thing through. This process has not been thought through. I wasn't notified. The great majority of the people in Arrowhead Ranch haven't been notified. And let me say this. We have a strong voting block in that 3 square mile area. Everybody else in this district, you're lucky you get 50%. That district, they're going to be voting, and not only do they have a lot of owners of small businesses and old money, but they will remember this. And if you don't think this is true, look what happened to Peoria School District just this last bond initiative. I look forward to supporting this district in the future. I voted for every bond, and I want to continue to say that I will in the future.
Thank you, sir.
This happens to me in my neighborhood.
Thank you for your remarks.
Very welcome.
Miss
Dr. Finch, would you please check and verify that there was a mailer sent out to all residents that live within our boundaries?
Yep.
I'm speaking to Dr. Finch.
Thank
You're
you,
finished.
sir.
More comment, please. Somebody said they kicked the can. The prior boards never addressed that. That's totally wrong. Prior to 2001, when my daughter graduated, the board addressed it and it was defeated. So this isn't my first rodeo on this real border issue.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you,
for sharing.
Before you guys were. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
But Dr. Finch, could you just verify how we went and got the list for all of the
Yep.
mailers that went out? Thank you.
And it's going to be presented later, the timelines and all the statutes that we have to follow, and so that we can verify all that information. Mr. Migliano is all over it.
Okay, Nate. If Nate Miller could come to the podium, and then Deborah, and I apologize, Catania, thank you. And then Matthew Valentine will be after that.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Nate Miller. This initiative is in direct violation of the school's boundary guidelines number 1 and 2. Number 1 states sustainable long-term plan with data-driven decisions based on projections for future growth and maximize use of facilities and minimize student impact. This initiative goes directly against the data-driven mandate, as the data that has been provided does not warrant a boundary change. Additionally, this initiative is at odds with the guideline because you can't maximize the use of facilities and minimize student impact at the same time. However, I would think that as a school board, minimizing student impact would take priority over maximizing the use of facilities. Choosing the maximization of facilities over student impact would indicate that our children's education is second to the district's own political agenda. Number 2, keeping families and neighborhoods together. This initiative is in direct violation as siblings will be broken apart. My son, who is here tonight, is in 8th grade, and my daughter is in 6th. So when my son is a junior and my daughter is a freshman, they will be attending different schools. And again, for no reason other than for someone to make numbers on a report look more balanced. And please don't reference the open enrollment. It's never guaranteed, and there's no bus transportation. And if you guys truly believe that it is readily available, then why are we even doing a boundary change? If this initiative passes, and I hate to say this because I am a staunch supporter of Deer Valley, I do fear, based on what David said, that you guys will lose all future bond initiative support for overrides in the Arrowhead area. I've been out pounding the neighborhood too, and I'm hearing the same thing from my neighbors. You will lose students. I can tell you my kids just aren't going to go to Deer Valley. We have been looking at other options, and we have been courted aggressively on Nextdoor by neighboring Peoria. They're all saying, come on over, come on over. So that's an option for us as well. In my opinion, this is just a short-term fix to make a report look good, to balance things out. But reports don't vote for bonds or elected officials. I want to vote for a new school up north someday. I do. I mean, someone mentioned here that we have room to grow, okay? But my problem with that is that, are you guys in the business of educating our students or property development? You're in the business of educating our students. If this initiative does not pass, I will continue to support you guys fullest extent I can, including joining focus groups, working with everyone else to make this the best district possible. I do not want to slam Deer Valley, the Deer Valley High School, because I want our district to be known as the #1 place in the state to come. But I am frustrated because I do feel like this entire process does seem underhanded. And perception, Julie, is stronger than reality. And the perception is that this is being slid over during the holidays, that the notice is short, and that the board is not hearing us. Thank you very much.
Two more. Deborah.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you for your time and letting us speak. As a homeowner in Arrowhead Ranch, I've been, very proud that my son graduated from Mountain Ridge. Him and his friends were going to join us, but they were working on his truck. There's a bunch of kids that want to come and speak and show support for Mountain Ridge and why they were so happy to be able to attend there. It's a community thing. You're going to break up. Your plans are, okay, then we have Arrowhead Lakes, we have Arrowhead this, but Arrowhead Phase 1 and 2, which were the forefront of all this, for Mountain Ridge, you're breaking everybody up. You chose, and I respect what you're saying about Highland Lakes where you purchased, Mrs. Frank. It's not about that. Your homes are beautiful over there. You chose when you purchased a home there that your kids would go to Deer Valley. Whoever purchased in Arrowhead, chose to go to Mountain Ridge. It's a choice you're deciding to take away for reasons that aren't concrete. And most of my neighbors that are ready to get a petition going and whatnot, we're working on it, they didn't even know about it. I didn't know. I heard it on Nextdoor as well and met with a few family members. And thankfully, there are people that have good, reports with numbers and stats and actual concrete evidence that this doesn't really make sense, So that's where I'm at, basically. There's more work to be done. I know there's a lot of people that couldn't be here. Last night there were a few more, but then we were told that it wasn't even documented at all. So that's when it got a little bit heated and a little bit, debacled at the end because nobody was taking notes. So everything that was said and the people that were present was like dust to the wind. He said himself, with all due respect, that he wasn't taking notes and nothing would be presented to the board, is what everybody was saying last night. So that's why it did get heated. I don't think it was supposed to be a disrespectful thing. It was because of what was said. So anyway, we'll move forward and hope for the best. Thank you.
Miss, could I ask a quick question?
I have a question also.
I'm sorry, what?
Could Mr. Miglarino give us the feedback he received at that meeting?
He
In
will
a board report, not now.
He will in his report.
So you're keeping track of the feedback we're getting at all these meetings?
I actually led the Boulder Creek one, and that's the standard shtick by the leader who's doing the presentation. We do not want to mess up their points, so we tell them to email their questions, their thoughts, their feedback to the Boundary email. All the speakers give that, so we don't misquote them or we don't mess up their point. So that's what Mr. Migler is referring to. I am 1,000% positive that's what he talked about when he was saying he's not taking notes. He wants to, and I did it as I led the Boulder Creek High School region. Make sure you email the Boundary with your exact points that you want to make. That way, there won't be a human error lost in translation. So that's what he meant.
Okay.
It's in the third slide, or it's in the first slide, I think.
Okay.
And
Okay,
separate.
Wait. Can we have? Can we have?
He'll show you.
Thank you. Can we have Matthew Valentine
I just
speak?
have
Oh.
one question. If the previous speaker, if you have data you referenced, if you could email that to Dr. Finch, and then Dr. Finch share that with the board. You mentioned numbers or data. If you have that, please send that to us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Valentine.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Valentine. I'm a homeowner, a voter, and more importantly, a father. I'm here with my wife and my children who are 9 and 12. We live in Hidden Manor on the southwest corner of 75th and Union Hills. I will go on the record as probably being the most recently informed person of this process. I found out at 6:05 tonight when I got home from work, and my wife explained to me that our homeowners association had sent out an email that this meeting was tonight and this was the proposed boundary changes. So we quickly pulled some of our closest neighbors. My neighbors didn't receive anything. So I've heard through the conversations before this that there was a survey, some other mailers that went out, and I don't believe any of you were responsible for mailing these, physically. But for a group that's saying that this is all above board, it's not being rushed, it sounds a bit suspect that many people in here, including myself, didn't find out through proper notification. So here tonight with my family, we've lived in a Hidden Manor since 2011, and moved there from just a few miles away because we wanted our kids to attend the Mountain Ridge School. And being 9 and 12, they're on track for that. But your proposed boundary change means they'd go to Deer Valley. Now, I don't know much about Deer Valley, and while I think it's great that some of you have shared your own personal stories, it's great anecdotal evidence. Some of you should be more careful before you say that you're listening and trying to make the most informed decision when that time comes. You're showing your cards by telling us right now what you're going to vote for. So my children are great students. My children are expected to perform at the highest level. So there's not much parity if you look at the numbers. How do I explain to them that we expect you to be the best and do the best, and we want to put you in the best education in the neighborhood that we have selected? Instead of going to school that's ranked number 1 of 5 in the Deer Valley School District, we're going to send you the one that's number 4. Instead of sending you the one that's number 1 of 10 in Glendale, you're going to go to the number 9 one. But don't worry, I'm sure there's a job involved where you can make French fries for your future. So, and that's not to be disrespectful. Anyone who makes French fries, I love French fries, and I keep several businesses afloat because of that. I also want to talk a little about the property value. It'll affect us. No matter what you say, the 2017 report by the National Association of Realtors says that 26% of people make a decision for their home based on the school district. We're one of them. If that weren't the case, it wouldn't be on every Zillow report, every MLS report, and I bet more than 1 in 4 people in this room here made a decision on buying a home based on the school district or the high school that it would feed into. We're one of those families, and frankly, do not want my children to go to Deer Valley High School, so we'll have to make a change. And maybe we should be looking to list our, any realtors in the room want to list our house soon, because the property values will probably start to plummet.
And with that, your time is up. Thank you.
Mr. Valentine.
Mrs. Ordway, I would like to respond.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I do. So I would just like to respond to a few of the previous speakers' comments. I was not showing my cards. Unless you are a time-traveling psychic, you cannot possibly know how I'm going to vote on this, because I haven't decided. No, I'm responding to you.
Okay,
I don't know how I'm going to vote. I want to look at all the evidence. I was sharing my personal experience with a school that I feel has been unfairly slammed. That's all. And as far as the French fries, none of my sons are working in fast food making French fries. But my middle son does make a really mean pumpkin pie, and he rolls out his own pie crust. Thank you.
All right,
So we're going to go to the number old business.
Yes.
The Juul vaping resolution. I move that the governing board approve a resolution authorizing litigation against manufacturers, distributors, and sellers of electronic cigarettes and vaping products.
I second.
Do you have any more further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, so that would be 4 ayes and 1 nay. I'm going to quickly read our resolution authorizing litigation against manufacturers, distributors, and sellers of electronic cigarettes and vaping products, whereas the Surgeon General of the United States Public Health Service has issued an advisory on e-cigarette use among youth, which emphasize the importance of protecting our children from a lifetime of nicotine addiction and associated health risks by immediately addressing the epidemic of youth cigarette use, and emphasize that the recent surge in e-cigarette use among youth, which has been fueled by new types of e-cigarettes that have recently entered the market, is a cause for great concern, and concluded that we must take action now to protect the health of our nation's young people. And whereas the Surgeon General of the United States Public Health Service has further concluded that e-cigarette use among U.S. middle and high school students has increased 900% during 2011 to 2015, and current cigarette use increased 78% among high school students during the past year, from 11% in 2017 to 20.8% in 2018, and in 2018 more than 3.6 million youth, including 1 in 5 high school students and 1 in 20 middle school students, currently use e-cigarettes. And nicotine exposure during adolescence can impact learning, memory, and attention, and using nicotine in adolescence can also increase risk for future addiction to other drugs, and we must take aggressive steps to protect our children from these highly potent products that risk exposing a new generation of young people to nicotine. And whereas the Surgeon General of the United States Public Health Service has specifically urged educators to have an important role to play in addressing this public health epidemic, whereas the former Commissioner of the United States Food and Drug Administration has concluded that teen use of e-cigarettes is now an addiction crisis and an epidemic, has identified Juul Labs as having primarily responsibility for the epidemic, further concluding that the problem that has been created largely by their product. And whereas the former Commissioner of the United States Food and Drug Administration has stated that the Juul e-cigarette is facilitating initiation to nicotine use and addiction by teens, and the blueprint for that e-cigarette could have easily been taken straight out of the tobacco industry's playbook. And whereas the Committee on Oversight and Reform of the United States House of Representatives follow a review of 55,000 non-public documents of Juul Labs, found that Juul deployed a sophisticated program to enter schools and convey its messaging directly to teenage children. They also targeted teenagers and children as young as 8 years old in summer camps and out-of-school programs. They have recruited thousands of online influencers to market to teens, and whereas the National Survey of Youth found that nearly 1 in 5 middle and high school students between 12 and 17 years old had seen the use of the Juul e-cigarette in school. Whereas a national survey of more than 1,500 teachers, administrators of middle school and high schools across the United States found 88% of the high school staff and 77% of middle school staff were very concerned, somewhat or very concerned about e-cigarette use by students at the school. It has widely been reported that Juul is becoming a nightmare for school administrators throughout the United States. Whereas the Deer Valley Unified School District has and continues to experience significant problems with the student use of Juul e-cigarettes, which use, among other things, has created substantial and ongoing interruption of and disturbance to its educational mission, has resulted in a diversion of substantial resources in an attempt to abate and prevent such use, poses significant risk to the health and well-being of its students. Whereas the Deer Valley Unified School District has determined that student use of electronic cigarettes and vaping products continues to adversely affect educational outcomes, and that such use has resulted in student suspensions, truancy, absenteeism, requiring additional resources from staff in an attempt to compensate for such issues, resulting in significant costs to the district. Whereas the Deer Valley Unified School District is a leader in education excellence, whose faculty and administrators care deeply about the education and well-being of its students, and which is committed to leading and not following it. Now therefore be it resolved that the DVUSD district authorizes the law firm of Wagstaff Cartmel LLP to initiate litigation and file suit against any appropriate parties to compensate the district for damages suffered by the district and its students as a result of the manufacture, marketing, sale, and use of electronic cigarettes, vaping products to seek any other appropriate relief. Okay, moving on to.
We had one abstention as well.
Right. We're moving on to
The Juul vaping lawsuit. I move that the governing board approve the contract for DVUSD to participate in litigation regarding Juul vaping.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those not in favor say nay.
Nay.
That would be passed 4-1. Moving on to just do it for me. That's fine.
It is. I move, we're moving on to recommendation for the K-5 ELA curriculum materials. I move that the governing board adopt the administration's recommendation to approve the K-5 Into Reading ELA text resource by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt.
I second.
This is Dr.
Elgin,
Galligan.
do you have anything else you want to add?
President Ordway, everything remains as it was in the initial presentation.
And have you received any emails from us in between that you want to address? Questions? Do we have any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for sending that additional information that we asked about last week.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
And this Friday's update has the second questions from Mrs. Frank and Miss Tweedy, and that information is in this Friday's update.
Okay, so are we ready to take a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are 5 ayes, so there's no opposition. Moving on to
the recommendation for the K-2 science curriculum. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the K-2 Picture Perfect Science Resources by National Science Teaching Association.
I second.
anything that you want to add?
President Ordway, everything remains the same there as well.
No questions? No discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposition, so we can move on.
President Ordway, I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 6A through 6H.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. President Ordway, I move that the governing board ratify and approve all employee professional development out of state per governing board policy GCCE.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 5 ayes, 0 nays. Let's go to 7B.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
I second.
Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 5 ayes. Let's move on to 7C.
We already did it.
Oh, we did do that because she's already our person. So we are now into our preview for our boundary changes. And prior to Mr. Miglierino starting, we do have one public comment.
We have a public comment from Jennifer Dinas. If you could please come to the podium and state your name for the record, and I'll remind you that you have 3 minutes for your comments.
Jennifer Dinas, I'm a resident of Hidden Manor, board and superintendent. My original comments were very similar to the people that you've already heard. So, I listened to many of your statements. I'm a retired teacher, and so I can empathize with what you're saying about the teachers and staff at Deer Valley. I have taught at the #1 district school in my district, and I've also taught at one of the lowest ranked schools in my district, and I know what that's like. But the purview of the board is not to improve a lower ranked school by moving students. That wouldn't have changed anything at some of the schools that I was at, and it's not going to change the feelings of the people that were here tonight. This is a divisive issue. People are upset about it. I know that when I always look at election results, I always feel very proud to be in Deer Valley when I see that our M&O overrides have passed, our budget overrides have passed. I'm happy when I see that, and I'm always curious why our neighboring communities have not passed. And passing a divisive issue like this is, I'm worried what it will do to our community. And I wonder why, if the board wants to level the playing field and kind of equalize the schools, why doing a boundary change that is so divisive, why don't you consider doing something like adding a STEM magnet to Deer Valley, or adding a coding magnet to Deer Valley, doing something to positively draw students to Deer Valley, instead of doing something that is so negatively polarizing your voter base and destroying your community. I can empathize with what you're saying, because I've been a teacher that has been at 2 different types of schools, but just moving students, there's no guarantee that that's going to change anything from all the things that these families have said. I know, because I've been in those schools. So I really wish the board would consider another option to improve Deer Valley. I mean, I know that you don't want to hear that, but the ranking and the test scores, that's data. And I know, I've taught at schools where our rankings weren't as high, and there's fabulous anecdotal data and fabulous community and success stories that come out of those schools. But to improve the community and the test scores, do something besides ripping communities apart and destroying the traditions. Do something that attracts students there instead of just dividing up neighborhoods. And that's what I would ask the board to do.
So, Mrs. Ordway, if we could just clarify, as I know this was an issue a couple years ago when I was president of the board, that a preview item is not something we're voting on tonight. And if you can remember, in the past there was a meeting where people showed up because they thought we were voting on something, and we were only previewing it and discussing it.
Right, for more in-depth conversation.
I just thought it might be helpful to if people didn't understand that, I just wanted to clarify that for our community members, that we're not making a decision tonight, we're not voting, we're considering information.
I think that was a good point to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
And who wants to jump in there, Mr. Migliorino?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So as has been discussed, we're going to share with you the school boundary initiative that we've been talking about for a little while. I did want to make note that I did take note tonight that we did send the notice out. I will try and get evidence of that and make sure that that gets provided. That was handled by our printing and graphics department. Is one of the comments that was made. Just want to go back to a little bit of background. So back in the end of January, we started to talk about school boundary, the school boundary change process. We had a work session in February of this year to develop and really kind of revisit the school boundary guiding principles. We've had these in place. We did author some variations to the guiding principles that we've used over time, so they're a little bit different this year. As a result of that, the board did direct us to get some community input on that. We did send a survey out to parents, asking them to provide feedback about those guiding principles. That happened end of September, beginning of October. And then we reported back out to the board the results of those of that survey at the November 12th board meeting. On November 18th, we had our initial community meetings regarding the school boundary considerations. So we did not have proposed options at that point in time, but we gave some indication as to what areas we were looking at. They actually were, the formal notice, as I mentioned, was sent out on November 21st, and I will get evidence of that to make sure that that did get received, because we've heard on a number of occasions that people have not received it. And then last night and again tomorrow night, we are holding the official community meetings at the various, we're doing them by high school region because we are considering more than just one boundary change. So we have those to share with you this evening. I don't know that I would consider that the boundary changes that we're sharing with you tonight would not change between now and the January 14th meeting, but that would, you know, we would keep the board apprised as to any changes that to the boundaries that we're currently going to share with you this evening. The objectives that you gave us to create balanced enrollment over all the elementary schools and include a new school boundary, since we were in the process of constructing Elementary 31. You also gave us the objective to look for a sustainable balanced projected enrollment over all 5 high school campuses, so that because we do have an imbalance in student enrollment currently at our campuses. I'm not going to read the next 2 slides, but this is governed by Arizona Revised Statute. This is that statute, ARS 15341, it's paragraph 37. We also have a board policy regarding school attendance areas that pretty much mirrors the statutory requirements. These are those guiding principles that this board developed. The bold items are those things that the community also felt were most important. You can see that these, pretty much align with each other. Guiding principle 1, 2, 4, and 5 being the highest ranked guiding principles from the community survey that we received. As for the input process, the statute requires 1 meeting, but we understand that boundary changes actually do have a lot of emotional input to them. People have strong feelings about their school boundaries. So the initial meeting that we had on November 18th was to really get information out to the community so that we could get input. The official notice, as I mentioned, was mailed out. We're doing the official meetings, the community meetings, last night and tonight, or last night and tomorrow. Tonight is actually just an opportunity for the board to see what has been proposed as boundary changes, because they have changed slightly from when we first provided them to the community on the 18th of November. Ultimately, our goal was to try and get any boundary considerations approved January 14th, and the reason for the timeline, as you see it here, is to be able to make sure that we can start the process for staffing for next year. That's for staffing at any changes that may be a part of the boundary changes that you're going to see, and certainly noted for the new elementary school. We need to know what the boundary is going to be, to know how many students are going to be there, to know how many staff members need to be at the school as it opens. We keep the feedback loop open. The boundaries at DVUSD.org has been open since the onset, and we've received through this morning 265 emails. Not surprisingly, 60% of those emails are related to the high school boundary change, and specifically 40% of those emails were directly related to the speakers that you heard tonight talking about the change from the Mountain Ridge High School attendance area to Deer Valley High School. I will tell you, I did not tally this, but I would venture to say that all 40% of those were not in support of the boundary change. There were a couple other, I'll call it top responses, including Canyon Springs boundary change. That boundary did change from what we originally provided to what we are going to share with you this evening. There were some additional comments related to the Sonoran foothills Notera area, and specifically their associated high school boundary. And then initially we had about 8% of about 177 responses, I believe, with the number, speaking about the Bel Air boundary, but that seems to have subsided, and now you see that number a lot smaller percentage, 4% of the 265 emails. Most of the emails that we're receiving now are related to the high school boundaries, which is not atypical whenever we've done boundary changes. I will tell you that about maybe 11% of the 265 emails are in support of the boundary changes that we have provided. So it's not all negative. There are some people that are supportive, including a few that are supportive of the change at Mountain Ridge and Deer Valley High School. I won't spend a lot of time going through this because we've shared this before, but just for the benefit of anybody in the audience that hasn't seen the presentation, really what this slide shows is the imbalance that exists. So we don't necessarily have a capacity issue per se, but the way the students are distributed through the campuses certainly is something that is causing some challenges for us. So 75% of the school facilities board capacity for our elementary schools, but a number of the campuses are exceeding their capacity because, again, our district is geographically very large, 367 square miles. So we have areas that are growing and areas that are have underutilization. So that's a challenge for us. The middle schools at about 74% of their school facilities board capacity, and the high schools at 89% of their school facilities board capacity. But again, some of the imbalances shown in this chart, the numbers aren't as important as the colors. So the blue represents schools that are under 50% capacity. Yellow, those that are approaching their capacity, and the orange are those that are exceeding their school facilities board capacity. So you can see there are some blue highlights there noting those schools that are underutilized. The yellow and orange are those that are exceeding their capacity. Some of that gets addressed when we build or when we open the new school, and some of that needs to be addressed in additional consideration. So not just elementary 31, but potentially another elementary school or other changes that need to be considered. Not part of the proposed boundaries this evening. This happens to just be our middle schools and high schools, and you can see that at the end of those projections on the right-hand side of that vertical line, we'll have 3 schools that are be at or above their capacity from this projection. These projections on this page, and this is where it gets a little confusing, so I just want to make sure that I'm clear about this. This slide, as well as the previous slide, these are the actual students, as well as any, that includes any open enrolled students that would have been at the school previously or projected into the future. Again, those projections are something that we're calculating based on trends. Our demographer actually puts together that information. The slides that we're going to show you regarding the proposed boundary changes do not include open enrolled students. And that's important to note because that's where some of the confusion comes with some of the data. The reason we do that specifically is because whenever we consider a boundary change, it likely will change the pattern of open enrollment because my poster child for this is going to be an area just north of Sonoran Foothills. That area is called Carefree Crossing. They are currently zoned for Desert Mountain Elementary School. It's virtually across Dove Valley Road from Sonoran Foothills. They can see the school from their neighborhood. Half of those students go to Desert Mountain in that area, and half of those students open enroll to Sonoran Foothills. We are proposing that area change because of how many people elect to go to Sonoran Foothills. When that happens, their open enrollment number will change. So in order to get to a constant taking out open enrollment, we just use a count of those students that reside within the boundaries that we're considering. We'd have to add back in open enrollment for any determination of how many students would actually be at a particular campus. This slide is really just a way of kind of graphically representing what is required by statute. So we are required by law to have open enrollment. And what this shows is each of the 8th grade campuses and what percentage of their students feed into their designated high school. And so each high school is represented by a unique color here. So if you take, for example, West Wing is kind of the pie chart that's on the far left, about middle of our district boundaries. They are designated for Sandra Day O'Connor, which is a tan color there. You can see about a third of those students, or maybe a little more than a third of those students in the black pie chart that's represented there, attend a school other than one of our schools. You can also see Norterra Canyon on the east side of the I-17 emblem there. You can see just about a little over half of the students at Norterra Canyon, 8th grade class, actually attend Sandra Day O'Connor across I-17, although they are designated to go to Barry Goldwater. So what this illustrates is, because of the statutory requirement to have open enrollment, regardless of how we draw the boundaries, as long as there is capacity, open enrollment does create an option. And as the speakers mentioned this evening, it does not provide a guarantee, because we can accept an open enrollment as long as we have the capacity to be able to accept it at any of our campuses. So really, this is just to designate that we have lots of students that we trade between our high schools, and that is due to the fact that statutorily we have to have open enrollment.
So I had a question referring to open enrollment. Have we ever had a situation where we've had to decline significant numbers of students, or do we generally accept open enrollment between the high schools?
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, we do have a couple campuses that we consider to be accepting limited open enrollments, for specific programs per se. So Sandra Day O'Connor, Boulder Creek High School, Sonoran Foothills, some of our campuses that are already over their existing capacity. So we do have limited acceptance of open enrollment, and we have. Whenever that happens, we put those students on a wait list. So if an opportunity does open up, or if we have another choice school that we can suggest to them, we would certainly try and coach them to place the student in something that would be desirable to the parent.
Would you say, though, is it fair to say, though, that currently the majority of our schools do accept the majority of the open enrollment applications they receive?
Yeah, I don't have the statistics to be able to, quantify it in a number, but I would say the majority of our students that elect for open enrollment can and do get accepted through the open enrollment process, yes.
Thank you.
All right, I was going to talk quickly about the Anthem area boundaries, and I say quickly only because we had proposed that we were going to do a lot more changes in the Anthem area to the elementary boundaries. A lot of this was what I would characterize as just conforming to what we were seeing in terms of the patterns with the parent choice. We have decided that we may want to hold off on doing that at this point in time, so that we can consider other options in the Anthem area. So really the key change here is going to be just at Canyon Springs and Desert Mountain. But some of the comments some of those 265 comments that we received actually would be speaking about the initial consideration that had a lot more changes to it. So this is the current boundary, elementary school boundaries for the Anthem area as they are today. You can see that Desert Mountain on orange is on either side. Most of the area on the west side of I-17 that you see that is in the Desert Mountain attendance area is unpopulated. I think we have maybe 2 or 3 students in that entire area. But that is the area that we're suggesting would change. These are the students, again, these are only the students that reside in those. These will not coincide with the numbers on the previous slide that had all those schools listed, because these are just the students that reside within those attendance areas. This is the proposed change. So what happens is that area west of I-17 was orange, is now light blue, I'll call it. The only other change that we made is there was a recent addition a community just north of Canyon Springs called Circle Mountain Ranch that was recently built, currently zoned for New River, but they have to drive past the Canyon Springs school. So virtually all of those students currently are open enrolled to Canyon Springs. So we would include that small triangle. It's almost negligible to be able to see visually on the map here. It's a small triangle that's just north of what used to be the boundary, the northern boundary of Canyon Springs. Again, this really does not affect any students in the western part of I-17.
While you're mentioning you changed the anthem and you may make more changes, and you would update the board, but is there also a process for updating the community as changes are made to what's being recommended to the board so that they have the most current information as it becomes available?
Yeah, President Orway, Ms. Tweedy, yes, we designated a website, DVUSD.org/boundary 2020. And thanks to Ms. Allred and her team, whenever there's an update, they're actually putting a tag on there to let the community know. So not that they have to go and look at every presentation, they can see when the presentation is updated.
Would it be possible then to also have put it out on Twitter or put it out in email or something too, just so that if people aren't going to the website, they know that the boundary information has changed and then can provide additional feedback?
Sure, I'll have to work with our communication folks for that. I know our top Twitter guy is he's all over it.
I would agree with that because there's many people who don't go to a website anymore. They're scrolling through social media or Twitter,
Good
Instagram,
suggestion.
Facebook, not necessarily going to a website. And I did have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the area that's zoned for Desert Mountain, that whole area along the Carefree Highway that currently does not have, is not largely populated. And I've driven through that area recently several times. Are you anticipating there'll be more development there? Or I know there is some area that looks like it is park. It's not something that would be slated for development, but you know how it is in Phoenix. If there's nothing built on it, there will be soon. So would you anticipate more growth in that area?
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, yes, there's currently an effort to put some infrastructure just immediately west of I-17 freeway. They're putting some infrastructure in to actually provide for the opportunity for some growth just south of Anthem proper and Canyon Springs. That has not been rezoned or gone through the land use process, but once the infrastructure is in, then we are expecting that would be a potential for some growth. It'll be adjacent to or closer to Anthem than it would be to Lake Pleasant proper.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the things that we provided in the presentations, kind of a narrative of what is happening, because it's sometimes a little bit difficult to look at the maps themselves. So that's basically this information. The note at the bottom is just a disclaimer or a way of identifying that there was a change between what is now being proposed and the initial consideration. So and just to speak to that, Canyon Springs attendance area does cross over onto the east side of I-17. Some of those students can walk to Anthem Elementary School. And so we were going to consider making that change. That makes Canyon Springs relatively small in anticipation of some future growth that we don't know the timing of. There was, some of the comments we received were that Canyon Springs was going to be too small, and because there was no immediate need to really address that, we decided that we would not make that change at this point in time. We did also receive some comments that people were anxiously awaiting for that to happen because Anthem Elementary is so close to them, but we think that we'll be looking at boundaries, in the near future once we recover from this process. Here's just the numbers that are represented with that proposed change. Again, the major change is going to be just Canyon Springs picking up students that now will reside in their attendance area because that were previously being open enrolled into their school anyhow in the Circle Mountain Ranch neighborhood. So really, that kind of ended up being something less than what was originally being considered. For the new elementary school, this is just that basic geographic region. So your kind of center cut there is the Norterra Canyon attendance area, Sonoran Foothills just above it, to provide some reference on the map. Here are the student numbers for the schools in that area. And this is what we are proposing. The new elementary school kind of having a L-shape or reverse L-shaped school boundary itself. That would allow what some people refer to as Fireside proper, so just on the east side of North Valley Parkway, to be included in the new elementary school, which would also include the Union Park community that is under construction today. It does make changes to the Sonoran Foothills attendance area and makes changes to Norterra Canyon boundary as well. Here are those changes, just again narratively, and here's what those numbers look like with projections into the future if the proposed boundary is approved. Just because there is a little bit of overlap with Desert Mountain Elementary School also being in play, as well as Canyon Springs, we're providing just an overview of what the new elementary school and the Anthem area all combined would look like on this particular map. It's not any additional information, just being able to look at these all together. We do the presentations by high school region, so this map just allows, even though we're talking about two different high school regions, Berry Goldwater as well as Boulder Creek high schools, this allows you to see all of those changes on one map. On here are the numbers associated with that. Again, same numbers if you were to combine the Anthem area proposed changes along with the new elementary proposed changes. So for Deer Valley High School region, this will be, I think, the last elementary boundary that we're going to look at this evening. Really is to take the Bel Air attendance area that you see here, that one, well, it's a little more than 1 square mile of that particular boundary. Here are the students, and you can see having a smaller population of just about 1,000 students for 3 campuses makes it a little bit of a challenge to maintain economies of scale. What we are proposing, that Bel Air attendance boundary would be distributed to Mirage and Greenbrier Elementary, and Bel Air would be repurposed to a choice school, a choice school-specific program, and as you have heard us talk about, specifically a traditional school. Here's what those numbers look like. You can see Bel Air with zeros. We obviously aren't targeting the school to have 0 students in it, but again, this is how many students would reside in their attendance boundary, and having no designated boundary, they would be able to draw students from all boundaries. And then high school boundaries, the last boundary that we'll look at. So this is just the current boundaries as they exist today, and some of the numbers. Again, these are just the students that reside in those attendance areas, and as you saw from the pie chart slide earlier, there is a lot of trading that happens between populations, not only within our own schools, but outside of our district as well. What we are proposing is basically the change at for the Arrowhead community, so just south of the 101, and also I would say east of the 101 as it turns. That area would be designated to Deer Valley High School. The areas north of the existing Mountain Ridge attendance boundary, which would include West Wing, Terramar, and Sonora Mountain Ranch, they would all be designated to Mountain Ridge High School. There would be conforming changes just due to the elementary changes at Boulder Creek and Berry Goldwater. But again, no students are changed in those boundaries. Here's what that looks like narratively, and the corresponding numbers that, again, of just the students as where they would reside. with, again, targeting the objective to try and create some better balance of the student populations. Also, we did take into consideration at some future time, we do have a future school site on the east side of I-17, close to Joe Max Road. I don't know if we'll keep that high school reservation, but it is a 60-acre high school reservation that would be for a future high school once that would be warranted. And leaving the Barry Goldwater attendance area intact as it is today would allow us to only address that once we were able to, or to address that particular boundary when we consider building a school at some point in time in the future.
Sorry, go ahead. Who wants to go first?
So I have two questions. If we could go back to the map of the proposed changes. So one of the speakers had suggested that the Deer Valley High School boundary should move further west, and I'm just kind of looking at sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. Was there any thought given to that area between, looks like 7th Avenue and 27th Avenue at the bottom of the Barry Goldwater? Because if it did look like their enrollment was projected to increase at Barry Goldwater, was there any thought given to shifting those students? And I'm the kind of person that I like clean lines. I'm not really a jigsaw person. I like angles and straight lines. But so was there any thought given to that, and what were the considerations? And that's question number one, and then I have a second follow-up question.
All right, President Ordway, Ms. Frank, yes, there was some consideration to look at the eastern boundary of Deer Valley High School to be able to increase the students at Deer Valley High School. One of the challenges, and the reason that you see some of the, the shapes that you see in the map, is the students that are in the Barry Goldwater attendance area go to Deer Valley Middle School. The students that go to Deer Valley High School go to Desert Sky Middle School. And so there are overlapping boundaries, both elementary and middle school boundaries that we try and follow for the high school, so the students don't get split. We are there at one school and go to another. But the area in closest proximity to Deer Valley boundary that's adjacent to the Barry Goldwater boundary, that area is not currently growing in student population. Where Barry Goldwater's attendance area is growing happens to be in the northern part of their boundary, so east of I-17, north of Happy Valley Road, for example.
So then what you're saying is shifting it further east at the southern boundary is not going to improve or release or overcrowding at Barry Goldwater?
No, it would.
Because that's not where the majority of the students are coming from. Is that?
Right, it doesn't have as much of an impact because there's fewer students there, and it creates another problem because the students don't follow the same feeder pattern, right? K-6 to middle school.
Right. So, but if you look at the Highland Lakes, which is a K-8, half of those students go to, at Highland Lakes, when they promote from 8th grade, half of my son's class went to Deer Valley High and the other half did go to Ridge. So there is a precedent there for splitting an 8th grade class that's promoting. And then the next question I have is, if we look at that area in Arrowhead Ranch, and obviously that's a neighborhood that they started building in the late 80s, early 90s, so it is an older neighborhood, and generally what I've seen with the older neighborhoods is you have fewer students coming out of that neighborhood and going into schools. If people are staying in their homes, their kids are grown, then those homeowners are not sending students to our schools. What actually, do we know what the number of actual students is that's impacted? Like, how many students are actually coming from Arrowhead Phase 1? Because if it's a smaller number of students, that's a lesser impact on the, if you kind of get where I'm going with this, that's moving them over to Deer Valley High School is a lesser impact to Mountain Ridge if Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1 is not where most of the students are coming from. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and we don't have it graphically represented here, but you can certainly, extrapolate that data from the change in the student numbers, right? So we show what the current boundary resident is, and if we're only adding to Deer Valley, when you look at the additions to Deer Valley, you can see how many students would be added from that particular area, because that's the only area that we're adding to the.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, you know, if this is upsetting an entire community and it's a small number of students at Ridge, is that is that worth it? You know, you always have to look at the risk benefits. So as a board member, that's something I would want to consider.
So based on the numbers that Mr. Miglerino has provided, it looks like it's about 400 to 50-ish kids, depending on how far out in the projection we look, that come out of that neighborhood to go to Deer Valley High School.
Okay. So it would be what the
if you take the students residing in the current attendance boundary numbers without open enrollment, and then there's a proposed, which is this number, and you look at the Deer Valley number for, well, let's go to a projected year of 21-22. So that's what resides currently in the current Deer Valley boundaries. What? For Deer Valley High School in the year 21-22, 1,341 students reside in the boundaries, those boundaries on this map. Does everybody see that number? Okay, and now if Mr. Miglerino, thank you, you look at this set of numbers and you go down to Deer Valley High School under the 21-22 school year, it's 1,821. That would be, this is the proposed boundary change, moving Arrowhead to the Deer Valley High School boundaries. And I realize I did some quick math, but 1,821 minus 1,341 is almost 500 kids.
I'm just curious, is Highland Lakes the only middle school that Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1 students attend? So, I mean, if we looked at the promoting class, and if we use this year as an example, how many of the students at Highland Lakes 7th and 8th grades are slated to go to Deer Valley High, and how many of those students are slated to go to Mountain Ridge? Wouldn't that tell you? Okay, thank you.
While she's looking at that, my question was, the parents at these boundary meetings, have you got feedback from the West Wing community about getting rezoned to Ridge from Sandra Day?
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, yes, we have received some feedback from them, and I would say it's mixed. Some in support of it, and some not supportive of the change.
Did you get a feeling it was more one direction than the other? I haven't heard from any of those parents.
It's been it certainly, I think if I recall correctly, it may have been less than 5 emails that I received from the West Wing community specifically. There were a couple additional emails that I received regarding the Sonoran Mountain Ranch community. So they attend Copper Creek and Hillcrest, and then are currently zoned for Sandra Day O'Connor. So they're students that build friendships in the elementary grades. They don't continue with those students through to high school, and so we did include those students so that they could remain with the Hillcrest graduating class and their K-6 counterparts to go to Mountain Ridge. Hillcrest itself is also split, so Hillcrest a portion of that population goes to Sandra Day O'Connor, a portion goes to Mountain Ridge. But because specifically the Sonora Mountain Ranch community actually attends Copper Creek Elementary, we decided that they should remain at Mountain Ridge. So we did receive a number of emails about those folks, and all but one of those individuals was supportive of the change so that their students could remain with their elementary counterparts when they reached high school age.
And then Mrs. Franken.
I apologize. Ms. Reed was showing me some numbers, and Ms. Ordway asked that we not discuss amongst ourselves as it's an open meeting. No.
We're open meeting, so we want them to know what we were discussing.
No, you're quite right. So then, if you look at, say, the 8th grade class of Highland Lakes, am I reading this correctly that 73?
Could you tell them which one you're on? What slide are you looking at?
I don't know.
No, this was I had asked for some data to be given to us by 8th grade graduating class to see where the 8th graders are going to high school. So the actual numbers, and we have the percentages. So that data was sent to us in a board update, and so I have that up on my computer as we're talking about this, so I can look at some other data. So when Mrs. Frank asked the question about how many 8th graders at Highland Lakes were going to Mountain Ridge and how many 8th graders were going to Deer Valley, I pulled that up for her so she could see it. So the numbers that she's going to read off of here are the numbers from the actual graduating classes over the last 5 years.
If you'd like to read the numbers since you've got it up on your laptop. Where are we at? Okay, so I have to look at the year. So the graduating class, so for 2018-2019 at Highland Lakes, 3 students went to Barry Goldwater, 4 went to Boulder Creek, 66 went to Deer Valley, 121 went to Mountain Ridge, 18 Sandra Day, 26 left the district for a total of 238 graduating 8th graders.
Mrs. Reed, could you remind us all which update this came from, please?
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
It was the 11-22 board update.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then in the year after those 8th graders promoted, that added 121 incoming freshmen from Highland Lakes to Mountain Ridge. If I'm understanding that correctly.
Correct.
Okay.
Wait. No, we have to.
We're not having a discussion with.
If
Because
you
we
could,
cannot.
if you would like to email that question to us.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it was not on. No, I don't want you not to speak for any other reason, but since you're not on the agenda, we've not given the rest of the public the opportunity to know that they could come and say something. So any question that pops up or concern, statement, observation, or whatever words you can come up with, just make sure you send it to Dr. Finch.
Boundaries. Thank you.
That would be awesome. Go ahead.
Okay, so if we extrapolate that out over 4 years, that comes up with a number of close to around 400 or a little 450. If you're assuming 121 students or in that neighborhood from Highland Lakes are promoting to Mountain Ridge, so that's not a huge population of students per year for that large of an attendance boundary. That makes sense.
But it is, I think, the other piece that hasn't been discussed is the number of students that are in the school districts at the northern part of that district, and what is the capacity that can be held, and not that I'm not trying to shut down a discussion about how do we look at all of those areas and what is the capacity at Ridge. We also need to look at the capacity at Deer Valley, and so
correct. No.
I didn't mean to interrupt because I don't know if you're done.
No, that I'm just trying to, in my own mind, as we look at risks, benefits, community feelings. It's helpful to have that number, as we go forward and consider and look at the impacts. So that's all I have to ask for.
So
right
the
now.
one question then is if you moved West Wing and Sonoran to Ridge, because I can see that, can you still fit? Do you have to move someone out? Like, can everybody fit in Ridge?
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, no, that would add another 480 students to Mountain Ridge on top of the numbers that you see here.
To the current numbers, you'd have to put back to the.
No, I believe what she asked was the proposed changes minus the change of Arrowhead. So we would have to add back the 480 students back into the Mountain Ridge numbers.
Okay, yes, I apologize.
So moving Sonoran, leaving Arrowhead, and moving West Wing is not an option. Like all the Ridge, that wouldn't work.
Leaving West Wing at San
No,
Rodeo?
if you sent West Wing West Wing really should be at Ridge because it's so far west. But if you had West Wing and Sonoran and Arrowhead at Ridge, they just all wouldn't fit.
That's correct. You would, just using that same year that we were looking at, 21-22, we have Ridge at 2291. It would add 480 students to that number. It's right there, 2576 at the bottom of the page.
So 2,300 plus 500 is about 2,800, and they have capacity for about 2,600, if I'm using round numbers.
And again, these are just the students that reside in the boundary. In addition to this, Mountain Ridge, because it's on the edge of our boundary, they draw in 238 out-of-district students.
But, excuse me, but Gesundheit, how's that? But I will have to say, I think as an elected official, my first priority is to the constituents who reside within our district's boundaries, not to the residents of the Peoria district. So currently part of Sonoran Mountain Ranch does go to O'Connor, so is the thought to shift them to Ridge if they stayed at O'Connor? I mean, this is kind of like dominoes. I'm just trying to think through all of the possible options. So if they stayed at O'Connor and Arrowhead stayed at Ridge, West Wing moved to Ridge, would you then have the capacity at Ridge?
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we did look at that at one point in time. I think it was in the original presentation, so I can go back and the original presentation from November 18th. I don't believe there were 480 students in Sonoran Mountain Ranch, but it was a significant number of students. So we can get that information to you.
Well, I guess the other question then I would have too is, what's the difference in the distance from Sonoran Mountain to Ridge and Sonoran Mountain to Sandra Day? Like, I mean, you don't have to tell me tonight, but what's the mileage to both?
Proximity.
Yeah, it's not significant, the difference in distance. The reason for the change was just the continuity of the fact that the Sonoran Mountain Ranch students were attending Copper Creek, going to Hillcrest, and then going to a different high school than any other elementary school student that they would have attended with.
So I did teach at Copper Creek, as you know, for 9 years, and yeah, we did always have half of those students from Sonoran Mountain Ranch, and that boundary change was difficult. When I was teaching at Copper Creek when that occurred, and initially parents weren't happy, and then they settled into their new school, and I realized this is a different can of worms from a high school change. So yeah, it's the same, similar to what happens at a Highland Lakes. The kids don't all promote to the same high school in terms of the Sonoran Mountain Ranch. So I realize I'm asking a lot of questions. I do think it's important for the public to understand the thought process that the district has gone through, that you have looked at all the pieces, and it also helps me in looking at all of the options, so we're making the best decision for our communities. Thank you, Mr. Miclerino.
Brian.
Mr. Miglerino, let me start over again. The proposed high school attendance boundary changes with the students residing in attendance areas, does that include just homes that are built today?
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, no. The projections include future known projects that are known to us. So it wouldn't include everything, because we don't, there are going to be some projects, this goes out to the year 28, 29. There will be projects that will, get on the books. But for example, Alavita is included in here, so there's a fairly large development at 75th Avenue in Jomax. We know that's already been zoned. We already know how many homes are going to be built there. We actually even know some of the pacing of the timing. They already have 300 homes built, or are permitted, I should say. So that is included in here. So all of Alavita is in here, but any other projects that aren't known to us would not be included in the projections.
And where do you anticipate future growth in our district?
So our demographer report has a heat map that shows where the projected growth is going to happen. And there's a corridor along I-17 on the east side of I-17 that it's a heat map that shows there's a red area around Union Park and northward up into, so between Happy Valley and Carefree Highway. And then there's another growth area along the Happy Valley corridor on the west side of our district.
When you say in the Happy Valley corridor on the west side, so you're over by our 67th and 75th Avenue boundaries, or?
That is correct. So up 67th Avenue from Happy Valley.
Up 67th north of Happy Valley?
Correct.
And do you believe that will, based on the proposed high school attendance boundary changes, do you believe that will come in this, what would be the Sandra Day O'Connor new boundaries? Sorry, could we go back to that map?
Most of the growth that's going to happen would end up in the proposed changes would be in the Mountain Ridge High School area, because it's all of Terramar, which includes Alavita, and all of West Wing. So that's where some of the growth is going to happen. Along the 67th Avenue corridor, because we've included Sonora Mountain Ranch, there's some limitation. There's a canal that will stop any growth from going any further north of the existing Sonora Mountain Ranch. And so it's just infill projects. But along, around West Wing itself proper, there will be additional growth that we will experience. So that is now currently in the Mountain Ridge, on this map, on the Mountain Ridge attendance area.
That growth is, but the numbers are not there yet because we don't know about those projects. Is that correct? Or those are projects we do know about?
Any existing project is included, but any growth that would be unknown to us, up Lake Pleasant Parkway, to be specific. So north of West Wing proper, along Lake Pleasant, that is not being developed as we know of today, but it could be in the future.
Okay. And then, President Ordway, I do have a question for one of our speakers that spoke on the boundary changes. Is that? It is for me to understand a statement, and sorry, I don't remember your name. Deborah, could you please come to the microphone? I have a qualifying question to ask you. During your statement, you made a comment about this boundary change being about improving Deer Valley High School. And I guess I'm curious about my note that I wrote down is why do you think that these boundary changes are about improving Deer Valley High School?
I didn't say.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're right. It's not your name there.
All right.
It,
No problem.
it was.
Now we know
sorry.
who you are
I
again. Thank you.
apologize. It was. I wrote. I have her name here. I just thought it was the wrong. I associated with Jennifer. Jennifer Dinas. Guess it didn't register when she said it. Mm-hmm.
Thing that you want to do, obviously, as a board, is improve a ranking of a school, right?
Well, my question is why do you was something said to you that made you believe that these boundary changes, or is that an assumption on your part? Is what I'm trying to understand.
Boundary changes are something was said last night that you want to do the boundary changes to make the schools more equal in attendance.
What?
More
To make
hold
the
on,
schools
wait,
more equal.
I can't. Hold on, I can't hear her. You said more equal in attendance. That's what was
in
said
numbers.
last night.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like from the data that you keep showing that you want them more level in numbers.
In attendance numbers.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And some of the arguments have been that Mountain Ridge is number 1 ranked and Deer Valley is lower ranked. And so I would think that as a board that you're always trying to improve your schools. I mean, every school district I've worked in, that's been...
Okay, so it wasn't something somebody said. It was a presumption based on... Okay, thank you. I'm asking her. She made the comment. Thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate it.
I mean, I would hope that would be the charge of the board, to always improve the education of the students
It is,
in the
but
schools.
we don't change boundaries.
We
to,
don't change
to do that.
boundaries
But anyway,
for that.
We're done
But thank
now.
you. I just wanted a clarification. Thank you.
Getting a little. Yes, Mrs. Reed.
Mr. Miglerino, a few weeks ago, I had requested data on the 8th graders for Sonoran Foothills because that school had been left off of all of the data that had been sent out. And I just double checked to make sure that we hadn't gotten it. And there was a board update that you had said that you had requested that information from the demographer. Do you have that information back yet that you can share with us?
President Ordway, Ms. Reed, no, I did request it of him, but with the changes to the boundary maps and getting all the data updated, he has not been able to be able to get that information to us at this point in time.
Would you be willing to follow up with him? I would like to be able to have that data, or even if we could get it from the registrar. I don't know if the registrar at Sonoran Foothills has that information, but I would just like to see where those kids are going and how that impacts the decisions that we're making.
So, Mrs. O'Brien.
I think so.
If I think of additional questions when it's not almost 9:30 in the evening, I will email those to Dr. Finch.
Well, absolutely, because I think we have a lot of notes to process and write down.
Received a lot of information, a lot of community input, so.
And again, anybody that is sitting that wants to have more input for us to look at, make sure that you email, please. Mr. Miglerino, is there anything else that you wanted to add to this?
President Ordway, there are a couple more slides that I think are maybe important
Again,
to...
I'm getting ahead of myself. You were
So the boundary change themselves include the map and the areas that would be affected. But then from a process standpoint, we received a lot of questions regarding, how it would be implemented. Currently, we have open enrollment priority acceptance of open enrollment through December 15th. We are asking that the board extend that through January 15th, noting that the decision is tentatively scheduled for January 14th, allowing at least a day for parents to be able to submit their online open enrollment applications. They can submit them prior to January 15th, but they won't know exactly what boundary they're considering until the board were to officially act. So we wanted to extend that to be able to give the greatest assurance to folks that open enrollment would be a possibility. And again, not a guarantee, but a possibility that people could count on. The elementary school boundary changes would be effective for the next school year, 2021, with the caveat that 7th graders would remain at their current school, so they would promote with their the school that they're currently at as 7th graders. We would provide transportation for them. We would open the new elementary school, K-7, and add the 8th grade the following year in the 21-22 school year. For the high school boundary changes, we're considering those to be effective in the 21-22 school year, allowing the current 8th graders, because they've been through the future freshman nights and have made contact with those schools, that they would remain at their current proposed high school and would be able to continue their high school educational career at that high school, providing transportation to those students through their completion of their sophomore year through the year 21-22. And in order to provide some detailed information about that, we've created these matrix to share with folks to be able to see what that looks like maybe more graphically, because it can be a little confusing when you talk about which year. So the grade levels, where they would remain at their current school, when they would go to the new proposed school for elementary changes. We did differentiate elementary changes and the Bel Air changes, because if it was to convert to a traditional school and be without a boundary, there wouldn't be any students, and there aren't any 7th grade students at Bel Air. It's a K-6 school, or preschool through 6th grade campus. This maybe is a little bit more represented here for the high school changes, so you can see the different years and essentially making sure that students that are at a current high school, including the 8th grade students that believe that they're going to that high school because they have made plans already to do so, that they would be allowed to continue at that high school through the duration of their high school education.
Is there going to be any allowances for siblings?
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, there wouldn't be any allowance beyond what you see here, but that is something that certainly can be included in there. But to add the siblings, I will tell you, becomes problematic for us because siblings can be generational. So we could be, if the intent is to affect the changes that are represented with the numbers to make the boundary change, if you add siblings into it, it will mitigate those numbers, because we'll be grandfathering for a long time.
So perhaps, Mr. Migliorino, if you can go back and look what we did when O'Connor opened and also when Boulder Creek opened, what we did grandfathering, how far we went with that, just to give us a basis, if you can find that information.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome, because when we did the Mountain Ridge to O'Connor, and then from Goldwater to O'Connor to Boulder Creek, or however we did that, just see what the last two, if you can find that information, what we did the last.
And I do think, since one of the top priorities in the survey was keeping families together, that this is something numbers-wise we need to consider, but also if someone has an 8th grader, but then they have someone who's 5th grade, and they want that 5th grader to attend the same high school that all of their siblings have gone to, if one of the top priorities in our survey was keeping families together, that's something I think we as a board should give top consideration to.
One way you could do that is also guarantee them through open enrollment. That would be mitigate both of them as well. So,
well, let's
so
not.
That would solve your.
Yeah, let's not just get into all that right now. Let's get the information that we have and discuss it. Cause
I'm just stating it something we should consider.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I'm asking for what we have done prior.
No, thank you for that, Mrs. Ordway.
So we are now going to. Next. Oh, we're done with this meeting, right, Mrs.
We're going
O'Brien?
to I'm sorry, what? Jim, do you have anything else
Oh,
for
gee,
us?
Jim, I'm sorry. Are
We
you
keep
not
cutting
done
you
yet?
off.
Do you have more?
Just one last thing, President Ordway.
One last thing.
What we are recommending in formal actions would be 4 separate motions, so that and really kind of looking for maybe some feedback from the board to make sure that this meets with your expectations. So we would consider the Anthem area elementary school boundary changes separately from.
I have one interruption now that you had one more thing. When we talk about Anthem area elementary schools, we're really talking about 3 different areas. So could we refer to them as the Boulder Creek region elementary schools as we go on? Just because that's what they are. They're all in the Boulder Creek region, and they're not all in Anthem. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
I'm done. Four motions. That's what we're considering.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, though, he was, if I am correct, asking for input from the board. If this recommendation, he'd like to know if we want to see it some other way or if this looks.
About what?
I would just be curious to see numbers on, well, including what Ms. Reed said with Sonoran Mountain or Sonoran Foothills and where they're going. And then if Sonoran Mountain stayed at Sandra Day, would there be room at Ridge for Arrowhead? I would just like to see it both ways. Like,
Right. I think right now he's talking about the process of how we're going to.
just the process? Okay.
Right.
Vote for the recommendations.
Well, I would just like to be able to consider more than one option by then and have like a sibling thing.
I think maybe before then, what we'd like to see is Dr. Finch, that information that has been requested and some of the different potential options and what those impacts are. But I think, and please correct me if I'm misspeaking on behalf of my fellow board members, that the concept, though, of having 4 separate motions on January 14th would be appropriate as long as prior to then we've seen different renditions of what the future consideration of high school boundary changes might be, so that we can look at all that information, process it, synthesize it, ask any questions.
Yeah.
Did we answer what you wanted to know?
Perhaps Mr. Miglierino can walk us through his logic, because it's coming from there's a method to this madness of approaching it this way, and perhaps he could explain why he is bringing this as an example of a way you could do it, because it is a domino effect. Maybe you can talk about that.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So essentially making sure that we have the elementary schools and the understanding of what the elementary school changes would be, so that the high school boundaries would then overlay the elementary schools. And just want to make sure that we don't end up splitting an attendance area. If we don't approve one of the elementary boundaries, we would probably want to make that adjustment for the high school, because they do overlay, so we do not split families or students that would be attending the same school prior to their high school education.
So yes, Mrs. Frank. Ms.
So
Frank.
I would just say this makes sense the way you've laid it out as in terms of a formal action. And then when there's time, I have an additional question on numbers. No,
Okay.
with boundaries in general, but not this specific slide.
Done with this slide now. Ask another question, Jim. Go ahead.
Okay, so this goes back to a question about the population at Arrowhead, and I apologize. This occurred to me after we had already moved past that slide.
Apologize. Go ahead.
My mother said it would be rude not to, so.
Hey, it's the last meeting of the decade. Just
Okay.
go for it.
So looking at the number of kids from Arrowhead Ranch Phase 1 who split off from Highland Lakes to go to Mountain Ridge, how has that number changed over time? Is it projected to increase or decrease? And my thought process here is looking at my personal situation in Highland Lakes, I'm not producing any more kids for the Deer Valley School District. Just spoiler alert to let you know. And most of my neighbors, their kids have all graduated from high school. So student population is got to be somewhat declining, at least in my cul-de-sac. And I'm just wondering, given that Arrowhead Phase 1 is an older neighborhood as well,
So you would look
going
for
forward.
some trend data?
Yeah,
on
trend
that?
data. Thank you, Mrs. Ordway.
Welcome. So if that can be included, Mr. Miglarino, in a communication before maybe a Friday update, or a Friday update if that's fast enough for everyone.
That's fine.
Be awesome, because we only gave you 400 questions to respond to.
I'm just going to go on record as saying I'm hopeful that Miss Taylor is helping me with some of the note taking, because she is wonderful.
She only went up to 273. Gary's supposed to be taking notes now.
You guys did not give me a skills test for typing when you hired me, and I'll admit openly that it's
So we're counting on you to rewatch the live stream every single minute in real time.
But
Ms. Taylor does
we can
that.
provide that information, but to Ms. Frank's point, we can do we did the math on 1 year in the projection. We can do the same math on any of the preceding years or any of the projected years.
And you
so I
want
think
him
what
to
might
go
be as
backwards,
important is to know what so we can provide that information. But
Okay, so like we sort of assumed there would be like 450 kids, going to Mountain Ridge from that area. But again, my thought process is if I look at like the area where I taught Copper Creek, that was an aging neighborhood, so there were fewer kids coming from there. So is that 400 that we're estimating, is that really an accurate number? And
So-
I think you said trend data,
Data.
really.
So we want to go back and forward, however you're going to figure that out. But we can clarify that after we get home and go to sleep, and then wake up and figure out exactly what we want, process it a little bit more.
Okay.
Life cycle of the neighborhood. So
Thank you, Mr. Miglarino.
wherever we are. Okay.
We're discussing Bel Air next at the work session? Okay.
That would
Okay.
be yeah. So
I'm going to
are you?
hurry up and move to adjourn this meeting.
Second. So moved.
I'm sorry, did you second that, Mrs. Reed?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Seconded.
Awesome.
Call the vote.
Are we going to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Go. 9:30. We have concluded our,
We need a 5-minute recess.
and we will have 5 minutes till the works.
5-minute break.
5 minutes, because it could be longer than that, but who wants to be here long?